Hi, and welcome back to the Positive Prepper. So there's something I want to talk about tonight that I think is becoming increasingly alarming. I'm not sure what you guys think about it. I'd love to hear your thoughts, of course. So 50, that's 50 AI data centers have already either started getting built or are going to be built, and they're hoping that they'll be fully operational by 2027. It's basically a year and a half, okay? That's a lot of data processing. Now, one that they're building in Texas right now is like hundreds of acres big. If you can imagine what that's like, okay? Hundreds of acres, one building as a data processing center. It's going to end up, all of these are going to end up using massive amounts of energy. And we already know how absolutely corroded our energy system is already. How is this going to hold up, especially in Texas? You know, you remember a few years back where they had that ice storm and the power outages and the people that died because they couldn't keep themselves warm. Multiply that by 50 as far as power drainage. Okay, we are not set up for this, and they want all of these operational by 2027, yet there's no work scheduled on the power supply. Okay, the substations, the main stations, the power centers. There's no scheduled work on any of those, but they want all of these data centers, 50 of them at least, in a year and a half. So you can only imagine what that's going to end up doing to our power grid. And what are these data centers going to inhale? Where are they going to get their input from, right? What sort of data are these data centers going to be taking in? Now, we know that AI is very up and coming. You know, we're very aware of that. Is this the beginning of a, bringing in the beast system? The precursor to the beast system, I guess, where you either have a barcode on your skin or you have a chip implanted, and these data centers are going to pay attention to where you walk, where you drive, who you visit, what you buy, what your medical thing is like, what your banking system is like, where you work, right? Is that where we're headed? And if so, are you ready for that? Do you have a way to live not in that system? You've got a year and a half to figure that part out. The U.S. government has a 10% stakeholder share in Intel, the company. So that converts billions in previously promised federal grants into direct equity for the government. In other words, the more that Intel is used, the more income our government has. Okay? And what has our U.S. government always been about? Bringing in more money, right? Paying Congress and Senate more money, giving their babies, their baby projects more money, right? This all doesn't smell right. And I have said before that although I voted for the one that's in the office right now, he's doing a lot of things that are making me question whether we're going to have freedom of speech, whether we are going to have freedom of privacy. Are we going to be able to maintain our autonomy under these things that are coming under this administration? I'm not so sure, and it bothers me a lot, and it should bother you. On top of all this, currently right now, there are about 270,000 Chinese students in our U.S. college system. Obviously, mainly at Harvard, okay, and those colleges, those elite colleges. Our current administration would like to bring that up to 600,000 Chinese students. Well, why do you think that is? 10% in Intel, building these big data centers, right? American students don't have the qualifications to run or work in these big tech centers. We just don't have the education for it. We don't teach our students that. Okay, you all know I'm a substitute teacher. And I see our teachers at the public schools just pushing kids through whether or not they actually make the grade. And so he's actually almost doubling the number of Chinese students that are currently in our system so that there are people that can work in these data centers. Oh, and guess what they usually do? You know, not that long ago, we had Chinese students caught bringing our U.S. government intelligence back to China. We don't seem to be worried about that anymore. China and the United States are in a huge tariff war right now. So what have we conceded? You guys need to be worried about this. You should be not worried. You should be concerned. You should be aware of it, and you should be preparing for it. Okay? As far as prepping goes, if you look around at what you have at your bug-in or bug-out location, are you prepared to fully sustain yourself off-grid? That means no power. You know, do you have a compost toilet, or do you have a way to flush your toilet? Do you have a way to heat your home or cool your home, depending on the season? Obviously, we're coming into September now, so we're coming into the cooler weather. Do you have a way to keep your home warm in the wintertime? Do you have a sustainable way of growing food? Not just your gardens for vegetables and starch, but do you have a way to maintain your protein? Eggs, meat, etc. Okay? That's number one. You have about a year and a half, unless you plan on fully subscribing to what that's going to look like, which I don't. You need to be fully sustainable on your own. So look at what you have and look at it from that perspective. If you had to live without being part of that system, could you sustain it? Okay? There are also some hidden enemies that I want to talk about as far as prepping. You really have to plan on, so the first one is you have to plan on what you're going to do with your garbage. Okay, you cannot just pile your garbage outside your door. Very unsanitary. You need to keep, especially if SHTF happens, you're not going to be able to get to a hospital. You need to minimize the ability to even get sick. So you have to have a plan for your garbage. What are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with your food scraps, your plastic, your papers, your cardboard, your cellophane wrapping, your jars, your, everything? What are you going to do with it? Because you have to maintain a clean area so that you don't get any viruses or bacteria coming in and making your group sick. The second thing, if SHTF is a long-term thing, do you have a sustainable way to fix cuts and wounds? So is your medical set up enough? Tomorrow I'm going to be making more of my plantain salve. Okay, and I'm adding in bees balm this time because that's also an antibiotic. So I'm going to have an antibiotic plantain salve in the 2-ounce tins. that is going to be something I can do sustainably for the short term. So I need to make as much as I can now, right? The third thing is, do you have a set up way to do hand washing? That's going to require clean water, right? And soap or hand sanitizer, whatever the case may be. But do you have a way for people to keep their hands clean? Not just for, the cleanliness of that person, but for preparing food. You need to have clean hands, right? So that you're not spreading germs into your raw meat, especially, but anything pretty much. So how are you going to maintain a hand washing station? I'm just giving you things to think about to make sure that you have these where you're going to be living out the SHTF. The next one is, do you have a way to fully cook your meals? Okay, when it comes to cooking, you can't shorten that. You have to completely have a way to cook that food to temperature. Okay, especially your white meats, of course, and your fish, you want to make sure are fully cooked. Okay, so if you have a way to heat let's say a can of salmon on the stove, that salmon has to be cooked to a certain degree. Do you have a way to do that, to sustainably cook your foods all the way through so that you don't get the botulism and the salmonella and all of that? The last thing is clean, clean, clean. Are you putting away disinfectants? Hydrogen peroxide is super cheap and it's a super great cleaner. Okay? Do you ever walk into a hospital and the first thing you smell is bleach? No. So what does that tell you about the cleanliness of the hospital? Now, don't start yelling at me. I'm not yelling at hospitals for not being clean. What I'm saying is, in an SHTF, especially if you're in an enclosed space, hydrogen peroxide, which really has no smell, but does a way better job of killing germs and bacteria, are you putting aside enough of that for a long-term SHTF? Okay? And when I say long-term SHTF, I want you to think about, would your supplies or your sustainability get you through 5 years? Okay? Short-term is probably 6 months, a year, maybe 2. Long-term SHTF, I think, is probably 3 years or longer. Do you have enough put aside for that? Do you have a way to take care of 5 years worth of garbage or 5 years worth of excrement from the toilet, or 5 years worth of a way to cook your meals, or 5 years worth of a way to clean your environment, such as with hydrogen peroxide? Things are moving super fast. Trump seems to be on like supersonic speed right now. And it's really hard to keep up with everything that he's doing. And obviously I don't agree with everything that he's doing. So you really need to pay attention to that. But these AI data centers really have me concerned. If they want them up by 2027, that means you have a year and a half. So look at where your gaps are. We're still working on our defense here because we have a long ways to go with that yet. But I just, for example, I just did 14 quarts of smoked pork soup. My husband right now is working on canning some corn that we actually got out of our own garden. My mom canned quite a few pints of plum jelly, which was awesome. My sister just did quite a few pints of homemade pickles from our garden. So, we're all working hard, stack it to the rafter, stack it again. And we're also thinking in terms of, the medical stuff, the defensive stuff, the sustainability, which is the key. So please put your comments in the section below. If you see it that way or if you see it differently. I'd love to hear it either way. And then also what you are doing about it to fill in some of those gaps. So please hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and I will see you guys later. Stay safe, stay vigilant, and God bless.